Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Automated Advantage. So today I've got a unique situation. I've got two people on. I've got Otto, who's going to introduce himself, and then introduce Barbara that he brought to the table.
Yeah, thank you. I will. Thanks for having us, Greg. My name is Otto Pijpker. I run a company called the Otto Group. We're in our second year. We're focused on storytelling and analyst relations, but very much focused on helping people with their narrative in what's becoming a more complicated world. I work a lot with my new business partner who has her own company, Barbara Roos, and Roos. Roos. I always say it wrong. Roos is the Dutch way of saying it. So sorry.
That's the right way of saying it.
Yeah. And Barbara has a company called Trailhead Communications, and I will let her introduce herself.
Yes, so Barbara Rose. I say it in a much more American way than Otto. He says it correctly. It is Dutch in origin. And yeah, I'm in my first year. I launched my consultancy, Trailhead Communications, in the fall. And I'm especially focused on AI and communications and narrative, and how that's evolving in the era of AI. Otto and I go back couple decades now. We worked together back in the day at Intel. So when I decided to leave corporate life and venture out on my own, Otto started knocking on my door. Let's work together again. And I was excited to do that.
Well, that's good to have the partnership, and interestingly enough, Otto and I bonded over the Dutch and South African thing. So in South Africa, they say it as Roos.
Oh,
You got three different ways of saying it.
I didn't know
Okay.
that. So Otto, maybe explain you talked about starting the company and all of those things, but sitting around the dinner table and going, man, I've got a good idea. Let me get this company going. Specifically, who you're helping, and why would people be looking at you to help them solve these problems?
Sure. I think what I realized after working in corporate America for many years, I worked both at Intel, or actually three-way Intel, then Microsoft for a long time, and then AWS. I noticed that storytelling is hard for a lot of people, and it's hard for a lot of companies and groups, and so and then I realized working with a couple of smaller companies that that especially startups and even medium-sized companies, they often don't have a PR department, or they don't have a comms department, or they don't have a comms person. Even it's usually engineers that come up with an idea, and then that idea it becomes a technology story. And I really found that there was a need with a lot of companies to basically help them tell their story, because if you tell the story from a technology perspective, it may resonate with somebody in who's an engineer, or in that particular and in those particular groups, but it will not resonate with people who are not technical. And so my first clients have been technical clients that are either in the semiconductor space, or in niche spaces that don't know how to tell that story. And as we go to analysts, or as we go to the press, it's important that it's a story that will actually talk about what the technology does for people. And I think Barbara can talk about this even better than I can, because it's in an era of AI. There's so many. It's so easy to create content out there, and there's a lot of content out there. And how does your content stick out? How does it become something that people pay attention to, because it's actually very well done? And that's what we think we offer.
Yeah, Barbara, I'm curious to know your perspective, because you did talk about the AI component, and then I was, before the call a little earlier today, I was looking at your website, and I think there's a couple of components, right? It's what Otto is talking about, but if I read correctly, it's also helping some of these business kind of like navigate through this AI noise, slop, whatever the word is today. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I work with companies in a couple different ways. I consult with companies who are trying to adopt AI and who are navigating resistance and fear around that, and help them with building their narrative around why they're adopting AI, and help bring their employees through that change. But then, Otto and I recognized an opportunity together that is a little bit more tied to, external communications. And it's how are companies breaking through and creating visibility for what they bring to the table in this AI saturated world. The ease with which people can create content now is mind boggling. And I think that audiences are getting really overwhelmed with just the volume of content and the sameness of all of that content, right? I mean, we all go onto LinkedIn and we all see all the posts and they all sound exactly the same, and it's exhausting. And so I think people are craving authentic voices and signals of who to trust and what technologies are worth their time and their energy to consider. And interestingly enough, at that same time that people are craving more authentic, signals and more authentic human connection, they're also turning to AI tools for recommendations about what they buy. And those AI tools are looking for some of those same things. They're looking for authority, credibility, authenticity. And so some of the same things that we can do to influence potential buyers are also the things that we can do to influence some of the AI tools to be recommending your solution to. And all of that is kind of anchored in what is the story you're telling? How are you framing it in a way that's relevant to the person you're talking to? And then how are you bringing it to life and showing that there's actual end customer adoption? How are you showcasing the customers that have adopted your product or your service offering and are willing to talk about that? Because that creates trust much more than marketing, AI generated marketing slop.
Yeah, and it's interesting because again, I was talking to a couple of people yesterday on a call too, and the word authenticity and integrity came up, and I think that's if you talk the AI slop is one component of it. It's that aspect of it, right? It's like how are you positioning yourself to be authentic, and then the same time is to your point as well is a lot of people out there are going, here's a tool, here's a tool, here's a tool, right? It's like, okay, what hole do you want to drill? Like, do you need a big jackhammer, or do you just need a little wood drill or a hand drill or whatever it is? That seems to be the general narrative I think people are losing sight of.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's this push to adopt AI as if AI is the goal in and of itself. And AI at the end of the day is just a tool, and you need to understand what problem you're trying to solve. Is it, you're trying to build trust, you're trying to grow demand, you're trying to streamline your operations. Whatever it is, focus on that and focus on authentically showing your value and what you offer, and then use AI to help you do that more efficiently. But it doesn't replace a real narrative, a compelling narrative, and a real value proposition.
Yeah, and Otto, maybe you can comment on this because I have a client in my former role that's a bank down in San Diego, and they literally told the company, if you don't start using AI, your bonus will be impacted. And people said, well, what does that mean? And they were like, if you don't start using AI, your bonus will be impacted. And it's like, okay, if I go and do a chat GPT search, does that count? If you don't start using AI, your bonus will be impacted. So I get that's the sense of what you guys are trying to bridge that gap. Right?
Yeah, I think we're seeing that a lot of people are trying to use AI, and they're trying to use it in a way that that helps them do things faster, do more things, and I think one of the things that we're seeing is that that AI by itself is not going to do that for you. You have to actually feed it the right things, and then you have to for it to be authentic and real. You still need the storytelling. Because by itself it won't do that, and it turns out really beautiful documents and spreadsheets and all the stuff that you want. But if you don't have the human intelligence behind it or the human talent behind it to actually help it spit out something that actually would resonate, then it won't. And I think there's two components to that, because there's also, I talked about the component about people that have a new company and they're mostly technical. There's no comms people and no marketing people. We're also seeing that on existing companies. A lot of companies are getting rid of marketing people and they're getting rid of comms people. And that by itself is also a mistake, in my opinion, because AI is not going to replace that. And one of the things you see is, and especially as an outsider coming in with a company, is we can help with what I call the companies that are kind of institutionalized. So if you're with a company for a long time and you've been there for, let's say, 2 or 3 years, you are starting to assume that certain things make sense because they make sense to you, right? And but that it won't make sense to the outside world, which is why when I started Microsoft, for example, I got a list of acronyms, what they meant, like a whole list. And because Microsoft people assumed that everybody understood what that was. Like when we worked at Intel, there was a thing called an AR, that was action required. We all knew what that meant, but if I used it at home, people were like, what? We know what that is. So same thing with stories. Like the story that you're telling internally that totally makes sense is probably not going to resonate externally. And so an AI can't help you with that. You need somebody to come in and basically say, okay, here's how you interview people, you check what their vision is, and then you go from there. And AI is a helpful tool to do that more quickly and kind of help ordering your thoughts and things like that. But it's not going to get you a unique or authentic story just all by itself.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting topic in the sense of what you said too. It's a lot of people. We all hear this in the news and that type of stuff. It's like a couple of things. First of all, hey, is it going to replace jobs? No, because you still need somebody to check the homework. Yeah, is it going to get you to the answer a little faster? Yes, but then to your point, what you guys are talking about is you still need to put that level of authenticity into it and figure out the differentiation, because otherwise you just become an also ran. And that's essentially what you guys are, Barbara, like you guys are kind of coming together to bring those two pieces together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that also ran piece is especially important because for companies to break through, there's so many, especially in the AI space, there's so many companies out there inventing new tools every day. I could spend 24 hours a day trying to go through all of them and still not experience a fraction of them. And I think that if you look to AI to tell you what's unique or original, you're going to miss the mark, unfortunately, because AI doesn't truly create something new. It synthesizes the history of everything that's already been created, and it tells you what it thinks is best based on a law of averages, essentially. And so as a company, if you're trying to market yourself and differentiate yourself, you don't want to be the law of averages. You want to really stand out. And that's what we can help companies do.
Yeah, you said something a little earlier, and it's been resonating in my brain. I was to bring it up. Is the other day I was like, "What is the best way for me to ask all of these different LLMs to tell me which one is the best one to use?" So I was like, "Hey, can you be objective, ChatGPT, and tell me if Claude or ChatGPT is?" It gives you a good answer. It gives you a good answer, but it's like, are you slanting it towards yourselves?
That is the question, right? And also, does it have the most current information? These tools are changing so rapidly. It might be able to give you the best answer as of 3 weeks ago, but is it the best answer as of this morning?
Yes, yeah. So there's this is a topic we can go on for hours. So maybe the question then, or talking about just business in general, and you just said you started in the fall. I started in the fall. Otto's been doing this for a while, but Otto, maybe you can give us your perspective. You started your business a little while ago. Like, obviously factoring in AI has changed a lot for everybody, but what have you seen the shift in the market? And then Barbara, when he's done, I'm curious to know, like, you're coming into this as a new entrepreneur, what are you seeing, and how you gathering intel, and what's your approach to the business? Because I got to believe it's different.
It is different, yeah, because I had my own company about 5 years ago, and it was a very different landscape then. There was some AI out there, but there wasn't what you have today, and we truly were representatives for small companies, and we helped them. We were their agency of choice and all that stuff. and you can tell that people are a little bit more hesitant to engage because they're just as everybody else, they're kind of confused about this whole AI thing. And can it help us? Do we really still need a guy like Otto, or do we still need Barbara? Do we need people like that? And you could kind of see that. And then once you kind of make your pitch and you have to talk about AI now, you can't not talk about it. You have to talk about the fact what it can do and what it can't do. And I can always, I don't know about Barbara, but I can always tell if somebody used AI to write a piece on LinkedIn, for example. It's very clear, because it's not like AI writes it's not the greatest writing in the world. It's grammatically correct, but it's not, generally not sexy, right? And it doesn't give you the pizzazz that you would get if somebody would actually write it. And so I think that's what you're seeing now, and that's what I've seen over the past 2 years, where people, still need that help and they still are looking for it, but they're kind of on the fence. They're like, well, but maybe we can do it with AI, and then you have to kind of explain to them that that they can't. So the process of actually signing a client has become longer as a result.
And then maybe, Barbara, to take that and to put your perspective on it too. And also my follow-on question that you were, in corporate world or whatever it is, and sometimes last year you said, I'm going to do this for myself, just because you saw a gap in the market, frustrated with your current company, or what drove you to do what you're doing right now?
It was a couple of things. I mean, first of all, ironically, my job was eliminated because of AI. So my job, along with hundreds of others, were outsourced to a low-cost geography using AI, and I wish them the best of luck with that move. But it was for me an opportunity to make a pivot that I was ready to make. And what's been so fascinating coming out of that corporate environment and being on my own is, the pace of this technology is moving so fast, and corporate culture moves so slow. I mean, the learning curve for me in the last 6 months versus the years before that is night and day. And I feel unleashed, where now something new happens, something new comes out, and I can just dive in and I can experiment. And I think it's an opportunity for folks like Otto and I to work with companies where they still are a little bit constrained. They're a little bit shackled by what they can do because of their procurement, because of their IT restrictions, because of all of the fears and concerns about these technologies and the risks that they create. But, a lot of the clients that we work with, they know that they need to be doing more of this, and they feel like they can't keep up. They can't keep track of what's happening in this landscape. We can be on the cutting edge, and we can be experimenting and trying new things, and then bringing that insight to the work that we do. So that's been a really exciting part of it, is just getting to, learn and grow and try new things every day, and not be constrained by corporate culture.
Yeah. The fact that you said that too, like I said, I also started towards the end of last year, and I'm at the ripe young age of 58. And I think if I took my learning trajectory over my 30 plus year career, it was like this. And I think in the last 2 months, it's been like this. It's just, but it's so much, I find it so, like you said, liberating. It's like, it's fun to see these things. And what I've done, and I don't know if you guys have had this access, I've part of the group that I'm with, we've created these little teams, and we're sharing learnings, because one person just can't figure it out all on their own. There's like, talking today about automating a bunch of different things in a different capacity, and it's like, I mean, I was going down this path, that person's going down this path. Now, if you bring those two things together, wow, look, our brains together. And I think that maybe it highlights the point of you guys coming together. I think it's maybe the way of the future is just taking like two massive like brains and collaborators and bringing ideas together, because trying to do it on your own, I don't know.
I think that's such a huge point. And I talk about that when I work with companies on AI adoption, that, this technology is so much more powerful when you create a culture of learning and experimentation, where people learn together. They share what worked, where they had failures, where they found sticking points, and they learn from each other and how somebody else tried it differently, because all of our brains work differently, right? And AI is in some ways kind of like a reflection of our own brain. Like, we bring to it our bias and our way of thinking, and then it starts to reflect that back to us. And so when you have the variety of a lot of different people and approaches using it, and they're sharing that, they all grow and learn together much faster than they would in isolation. And you also then have, like, people who are more at the cutting edge, more early adopters, helping bring along, people who might be a little bit more resistant or a little bit behind, so that, again, everybody's moving forward. And I think there's some parallel there with working with an actual other human being. Like, it's really easy right now to be a solopreneur and only use AI tools and do everything yourself, right? And I think we're all doing a degree of that, but there's a real difference when I get on a client conversation with Otto versus myself, and then afterward we have a call. It's like, what did you hear? What did I hear? What do we think is needed here? And we bring different perspectives. And I think, that is kind of a parallel to, like, the whole DEI movement that you saw in corporate America, which, I believe in fundamentally the value of having diverse perspectives, diverse experiences, and how if you have a well-rounded team, you get a better outcome. And so in that way, we're kind of creating that with each other by not just being two identical people working together.
Yeah, it's such a. I just brought on a client right now, and the scope of the work is pretty substantial. And I mean, could I have done it on my own? Yes, but I brought in somebody else too, who just has that different perspective. Is We're similar in a lot of ways, but so different in a lot of ways. And I'm just to your point about, first of all, the solopreneur thing. It can get very lonely sitting in this office by yourself. And like, now we collaborate, we're talking to the client together, we're prepping together. It feels like I have this big company behind me, and it's super interesting. I really want to dig into a little bit of the how, and because I know no, not a victim. I'm the example of what you said, where I go and say, "Hey, I need 5 LinkedIn posts. Can you do the?" And in addition to the fact, to take on what Barbara said, I'm trying not to lead the witness. Come up with an original idea, but I kind of like these ideas, and then it takes your form. So if you could tell me a little bit more about, specifically, like, let's just say I'm trying to do some LinkedIn stuff, and you said making it original, making it yourself. How do you do that?
There's a number of things that I look at. For one, I still do the old. So I'm an old school journalist. That's how I started my career. Not here in the U.S., but back in the Netherlands. I did a lot of interviews. I wrote probably over 200 articles that got published. And that actually has become a lot easier too. As a matter of fact, I was kind of thinking about maybe writing an article about that, because I remember having a little recorder, that didn't transcribe anything, and you had, I took notes of the, and that was a lot of work. And so, but interviewing people and sitting down with them and picking their brain again is something AI can't do, because I can start thinking about. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That is a newsworthy item. Let's go dig deeper on that particular topic, because I understand what an analyst or a media person is going to be looking for, or what the folks on LinkedIn are going to be looking for. Right? It kind of depends on what audience it is. And I think so. The old school, sitting down with somebody, interviewing them, maybe doing it on recording it, and then coming up with an angle is actually one of the ways that I do that. And then also adding in things, and we talked about that this morning actually with one of our clients, adding in anecdotes, adding in um, things that make the technology tangible. So something that somebody who's not a technology person would understand it, or a customer example, things like that, that really make it easy. So those would be the things that I would do, and that I would and that's something that AI just can't do.
Yeah, no, you got the actual experience aspect to it, and so maybe there is still value for us younger people like us to go and bring perspective to the world. Um, the question that I was looking as well is you and maybe starting again with you is um, I got to believe this, and you did touch on it earlier, but not to go to the same point, is obviously doing what you're doing and bringing in that aspect. You've seen this value in bringing in somebody like Barbara and then combining these two worlds together. So you've got the historical, whatever you do, but now, hey, I'm going to bring in this AI world, and the two need to work together. That's the impetus of the partnership.
It is, yeah. When Barbara told me what she was working on, I was like, well, that's great because I'm doing the traditional blocking and tackling that you do when you are if you will, a CCO or like or CMO, where you basically are sitting down with a client and say, okay, what audience are you trying to reach, and ask all the questions, and then you look at the channels that you have, and then you start building a plan for them and a strategy on getting out there. And obviously, AI is a big part of that now. And because Barbara is so focused on how companies use AI and especially in how clients could use AI, that's actually seemed like a perfect match.
Yeah, Barbara, maybe getting like you did touch on it too, but bring that in and say like how the two of you, like what does Otto bring to the table that you can then lean in on, and it's like you said, maybe it's just a warm body on the other side of the call, just to have somebody be a partner with it. But I'm sure it's a little bit more than that.
It's a lot more than that. I mean, honestly, in building my business, it was like I'm very goal oriented, and I use tools, I create systems, I have checklists. I'm always like doing. And so for me, like building my business, it was like I was racing on this treadmill, just like I got to get it all done. I got to get it all done. Um, you know, Starting to work with Otto kind of re-anchored me in something really much more fundamental that I value and have long known, but you kind of forget when you work by yourself and you get caught up in the treadmill, which is, relationships and substance and human connection. And, it's been so interesting. Like, Otto was the first one to bring me into meetings with, you know, relationships in his network and connections, and was very warm and giving and opening up his network to me. And then as we started meeting with people together, it started sparking ideas for this intersection of what each of us brings to the table. And I think he has reminded me of how important narrative and story and authenticity are. And I have helped spark in him a little bit more excitement and interest in AI and bringing some of these new tools into the table. And so it's a really nice compliment. That again, like, there's sometimes in life, it's just the serendipity of the unexpected and being open to what the universe brings to you. And I think that's what this has yielded for us.
It's interesting you say that. I've been a firm believer in sometimes you meet somebody in your life and you're like, I don't know why, and some people disappear from your life and other people stay in your life and you don't know why, and then suddenly it presents itself into a business opportunity or a whatever it is, right? It's such a I've always had a strong belief in that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So as we get close to the end of this, a question on I was trying to think about how to frame the question in the sense of where are you, and I don't know if it's been negative, but maybe just go that where are you guys finding pushback in this? Like, is it because I mean, for me, it's a lot of people say, "Hey, you're one of the fifth person who's called me to talk to me today about this. What makes you different? Are you guys finding the same thing as just trying to capture the audience by being educational, or maybe just how to find your clients, and what kind of pushback / acceptance are you getting?
I mean, I'll jump in here. I think, when we're talking with companies about how to break through with an authentic narrative and how to differentiate in the marketplace, we're certainly encountering companies where they've spent a lot of money trying to chase impact and they're fatigued with it because there's just so many people out there, so many companies that are making grand promises and not really delivering. And again, there's so much noise; it's really hard to break through. And so, what we're trying to lean in on, even though we use modern tools and AI and everything to be as efficient as possible, at the end of the day, it's about authentic story and authentic impact. And, if you can sit down with a client's customers and hear from their customers, what is it about the service or the product that you bought that really made a difference for you? And how has that changed things for you? And why is that compelling enough that you might be willing to tell other people about that? Suddenly you're getting at kind of the magic of what that company, the value that they deliver. And often you can open up their own eyes to a narrative that they didn't understand about themselves, right? Like they're thinking about this cool technology they developed and they just want to sell it, and they don't understand why everybody doesn't see how amazing it is. And they're not necessarily framing it the way customers think about their problems. And so we can help do that. And I think, again, with all the technology and all the change, just going back to the basics of having conversations with people and understanding where is the meaning and the value coming from, and then how do you tell that story? That's just bread and butter marketing and communications.
Yeah, I can't disagree with what Barbara said. That's exactly what it is. I mean, what I'm seeing is that there's still a need, and also because the landscape has changed, right? I mean, it used to be that you had a lot of different outlets, and there was a lot of there were a lot of different magazines and places out there where you could place your story. That's changed. I mean, just like AI has affected marketing departments and communications departments, it's also affected the journalism atmosphere and the media atmosphere. And I think that's one of the things to actually stand out. One, you have to pitch. Your pitch has to be really good for a journalist to actually accept it and say, yeah, I'm going to write about that, because their span has gotten so much bigger about what they write about because there's less journalists. So that's one. But two, it's also just, there's so much information out there. So for your story to stand out, it needs to be really, really good. And I think the combination of Barbara and I can help companies with.
I'm happy you finished on that. I'll just add one thing to that the group that I ended up buying into and being a part of is, well, not so much them, but I see this in the world. Like, people are hitting you up. Hey, I've got this thing to sell you. Boom, 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 sign my contract, send me your credit card. And it's like, I'm delivering, and hopefully it's going to prove its success, because so far it has, is in the selling motion of being more educational, more collaborative, more consultative, and less, oh yeah, but by the way, can you see this widget? Can you just buy it really quickly because it's going to help change your world? And I feel like I have to believe this, but I truly believe it from the bottom of my heart, is I think we're going to win through. I think the has-beens and you talked about putting products out on the market so quickly and being, realistic to people and things, they'll fall away. People see through the BS. And I think the three of us are saying a very, very similar thing.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I appreciate it. I think it went extremely well doing the two-person. I need to do more of this, but thank you so much. So why don't you, Otto, start out? Just tell us the name of your company again, how to find you. Are you on LinkedIn? And then Barbara, you can do the same thing.
Yep. You can call to the autogroup.com or .com with hyphens in between the auto and the group. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. It's a small company. Really, right now it's just me and Barbara, but we work together. So that's it.
And you can find me at trailheadcommunications.com, no hyphens. And there's a link on my page at the bottom to my LinkedIn profile as well.
Excellent. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. I thought it was enlightening. And you too. Thank you so much for spending your time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.